$40 for a gas leak, $50 for a major police response, $75 for a bomb threat or a mass shooting. And they'll shut down the school for a day. Discounts for returning customers. That's the menu. Those are the prices. Posted on Telegram in January 2023 by someone offering to send armed police to anyone, anywhere, for the cost of a decent lunch. Over 18 months, more than 375 orders were placed from that menu. The person behind the counter started when he was 15 years old. If you're listening for the first time, welcome. If you want the actual case files and court documents behind this investigation, I share those exclusively with Substack subscribers. And you can find me on Substack. Just search True Crime Unheard or visit truecrimeunheard.com. I don't think this case has ever been covered on a podcast. Not by Dateline, not by 48 Hours, not by anyone doing what I do. A teenager built a swatting-for-hire operation from his bedroom in the Mojave Desert. The court documents reveal something no news article has fully explored. The collision between a 99th percentile intellect, an autism spectrum diagnosis, and 375 swatting and threat calls, all committed for money and a power trip. Hi, I'm Steve Rhode, and I've spent 30 years, more than 30 years actually, as an investigative writer tracking financial criminals and years in emergency services as a police dispatcher, surveillance photographer, and chief pilot for public safety operations. Today I'm telling you a story from a different kind of crime world. One where the weapon is a phone call and the ammunition, it's a lie. Where the crime scene is everywhere and nowhere. Where one teenager working from a bedroom in Lancaster, California, managed to send armed SWAT teams to mosques, schools, historically black colleges, the Pentagon, members of Congress, and individual people who'd done nothing more than make him angry online. His name is Winston Filion. Online, he went by Torswats. And according to federal court documents, he is one of the most prolific swatters in American history. If you don't know what swatting is, if you haven't encountered the word before, it's making a false emergency call to trigger an armed law enforcement response at someone's location. The name comes from SWAT teams, and the goal is to have heavily armed officers show up at an innocent person's door, believing they're responding to a mass shooting or a hostage situation. Best case, someone's terrified. Worst case, someone is killed. It has happened. But this story isn't just about what he did. It's about who he is and whether those two things can exist in the same person without one explaining away the other. Before I tell you about the victims, before I tell you about the investigation, I want you to understand what this was. The court documents describe something that operated just like a business. On January 20th, 2023, according to the plea agreement in the United States versus Winston Filion, a post appeared on a Telegram channel and it read, and I'm quoting from the court document directly, "Prices, $40, Gets you a gas leak, fire for EMS, fire department, gas company response. $35 for returning customers. $50. Major police response to the house. $40 for returning customers. $75. Gets you a bomb threat or mass shooting threat. They will shut down the school or public location for a day. $60 for returning customers. All SWATs will be done ASAP or present time. Payment in cryptocurrency, discounts for loyalty, a money-back guarantee. 10 days later, another post, quote, I used to do swattings for the power trip. Now, I do them for the money and the power trip, unquote. This was a 16-year-old, a student at a community college in the high desert of California, who had already earned 100 credit hours and carried a 3.73 GPA. A smart kid who had scored in the 99th percentile on standardized tests at age 12. He was a whiz kid. And according to his own posts the government recovered from his seized devices, he had already estimated his criminal exposure. Quote, I think I'm going to get 2 years in prison. I live in a lenient state, unquote. He was wrong about that. But before we get to what happened to Alan Filion, before the FBI, before the arrest, before the judge who would give him more time than the government even asked for, I need to take you to a sunny Sunday in Florida, to a mosque, to a woman and her 2 children, and to the moment when a phone call from 2,500 miles away put their lives in terrible danger. May 12, 2023, a warm spring Sunday in Sanford, Florida, near where I used to live. 86 degrees, the kind of humidity that clings to the skin. At a mosque on Myrtle Street near the south shore of Lake Monroe, services were underway. According to court documents, a woman and her 2 children were inside. At some point that Sunday, a call came into local law enforcement. The caller, using a digitized text-to-speech voice, claimed to be inside the mosque, claimed to have an AR-15, a Glock 17 pistol, pipe bombs, Molotov cocktails, and the caller said he was going to commit a mass shooting. And these are the exact words from the plea agreement. Quote, in the name of Satan, unquote.
Are you in front of the school right now?
Yes, I'm walking in now.
Okay, can you stop, please? Shots heard, Andrea, shots heard. Hey, can you lock down your facility? We have a report of shots fired at Central Valley High School. It was probably the worst call I've ever received.
Shots fired on the hotline and the guy disconnected.
Approximately 30 law enforcement officers responded to the mosque. Armed, ready, locked and loaded, and treating the threat as real because you have to. A woman shielded her children as officers swarmed the building. But there was no gunman, no AR-15, no pipe bombs, no Molotov cocktails. 2,500 miles away in a bedroom in Lancaster, California, a city in the desert, where summer temperatures regularly exceeded 100 degrees. A 16-year-old kid had just completed another transaction. According to the government's sentencing memo, Filion also targeted 3 additional Florida religious institutions that same day. He was having a fire sale. That mosque call became count 1 in a federal criminal investigation. And it wasn't even close to the worst thing he did. 6 months before the mosque, October 10th, 2022. A voicemail was left for a public high school in Skagit County, Washington. News reports identified the school as a high school. And according to the factual basis of the plea agreement, this is what it said, and I need to warn you. This might be difficult to hear.
I'm going to walk into Coleman High School and I'm going to kill everyone I see.
The full voicemail as documented in the plea agreement went further. The caller used a digitized text-to-speech voice and identified himself as a specific student, a real 17-year-old who attended the school. There's no need for me to use the student's name. And the court documents refer to him as Victim 2. And the message said, "My name is," and I'm using text-to-speech to hide my identity. Tomorrow, October 11th, 2022, I'm going to commit a school shooting with my AR-15 and Glock. I will kill as many kids as I can, and then I'll shoot myself. I have pipe bombs that I have placed in the bathrooms, ceiling tiles, and trash cans around the school. They are set to detonate right before class starts, killing everybody and collapsing the roof. And the message ended with an anti-LGBTQ slur. Think about what just happened. A 15-year-old in California, using a digitized text-to-speech program to disguise his voice, called a school in Washington and framed a real 17-year-old student for a mass shooting that was never going to happen. That innocent student was suddenly under suspicion for the most terrifying crime a school can face. According to the Spokesman Review, Filion made 8 separate threats against that high school, and that call became count 3 in the federal case, with an extra LGBTQ hate crime enhancement. But it didn't stop at one school. No. On May 10th and 11th, 2023, Filion made at least 20 calls to Washington state schools in just 2 days. According to court documents, those calls also included threats to kill responding police officers. Great. The Spokesman Review reported the cost to the Washington schools, nearly $300,000 in lost instructional time. And still, I haven't told you about the time he called a federal agent's home at 2:45 in the morning. But I'm going to. July 10th, 2023, the Western District of Texas, 2:45 in the morning, and according to the plea agreement, count 4, Filion called local law enforcement and identified himself as a senior federal law enforcement officer. He used the agent's real name, and he claimed he had just killed his mother. Quote, "Her brains exploded on the walls behind her," unquote. He told the dispatcher, "If you send the cops, I'm going to kill them." An armed response was dispatched to the agent's home in the middle of the freaking night to a family sleeping in their beds. This was 5 days before the FBI executed a search warrant at Filion's home in Lancaster, California. That fact, that timeline, matters. Because it means Filion was still making these calls even as the FBI was closing in, even as agents were preparing to knock on his door. But here's the part of the story that nobody's fully told yet. The FBI didn't find Filion on their own. A private investigator had been hunting him for nearly 2 years, using the same encrypted channels Filion thought was keeping him safe. His name is Brad Dennis, and online he goes by Calf Frost. He's a private investigator affiliated with the Class Kids Foundation. That's a child safety organization, and he was hired by two high-profile Twitch streamers who had been repeatedly swatted by Torswats. According to Wired's investigation by journalist Andy Greenberg, Dennis began his undercover operation in December 2022. He posed as a customer, and according to one report from Notebook Check, his cover story was that of a vengeful ex-husband looking to terrorize his former spouse. Dennis made contact with Torswats through Tox, a peer-to-peer encrypted messaging service, and then he did something clever. Real clever. According to Wired, Dennis used Wireshark, a network traffic monitoring tool, to capture the data packets flowing during their conversation. Hidden in that traffic was an IP address, and it was a real one. Behind the alias Piedmon Arnum, a name drawn from dark mythology, consistent with Filion's other aliases like Nazgul and Angmar from Tolkien. There was a residential internet connection in Lancaster, California. Dennis handed the evidence to the FBI in January 2023, but Dennis wasn't working alone. A key witness, Matt Morse, a World of Warcraft streamer known as Stay Safe TV, recognized something that no algorithm could have caught. According to Wired and PC Gamer, Morse recognized Filion's typing pattern, his cadence, his word choices. Morse had encountered this same person in a private gaming server community 5 years earlier, and he recognized it. Pattern recognition, not from artificial intelligence, but from a human being who'd been terrorized by the same person who was now terrorizing hundreds. Here's where the timeline gets maybe a little uncomfortable. Dennis gave the FBI that IP address in January 2023. The FBI executed a search warrant at Filion's home in July, 6 months later. According to the government's sentencing memo, when agents arrived that day, July 15th, 109 degrees in the Mojave Desert, Filion readily lied to the agents. Shocker. They seized 13 devices, phones, laptops, tablets, and an external hard drive. And then Filion kept going. Hey, let's stop here for a moment. As a former police dispatcher, someone who coordinated emergency response for a couple of years, the FBI's timeline in this case can keep you up at night. They had Dennis's evidence in January. They searched Filion's home in July. They arrested him the following year in January. That's 12 months from evidence to arrest and 6 months from search warrant to handcuffs. During those 6 months after the search, according to court documents, Filion continued making swatting calls. He targeted additional schools. He and a co-conspirator launched what they called the Grand Offensive. Approximately 100 calls targeting a former president, sitting senators, and cabinet officials. You know, when you're in emergency services and you learn that every minute of delay has a cost, here the cost was actually measurable. More schools evacuated, more families terrorized, more law enforcement resources diverted from real emergencies. And the question I can't answer, and no reporting has answered, is why it took 6 months after the search to make an arrest. What I can tell you is what Filion did with those 6 months, and it was the Grand Offensive. After the FBI searched his home and seized his devices in July 2023, most people would have stopped. Filion didn't just continue. He escalated. According to the plea agreement on November 29, 23, Filion posted, quote, "I will be resuming normal operations on Christmas. Family man versus cyber criminal," unquote. Think about that sentence. He's framing his own life as a movie. And the kid who sits at the Christmas table with his father and aunt and uncle versus the kid who sends SWAT teams to people's homes in the middle of the night. According to the government's sentencing memo, between late December 23 and January 24, Filion and a co-conspirator with a foreign accent made approximately 100 swatting calls. This was their grand offensive, and their targets included a former president of the United States, sitting U.S. senators, cabinet-level officials, and it was a massive project. On January 25th, 2023, he posted, quote, "Cybercrimes are easy to get away with if done right. It's either a 0% or 100% chance of getting caught, assuming you don't brag about it," unquote. And then in March, he's quoted as saying, "Actually, in some states, bomb threats to schools are counted as terrorism. So, I'm a terrorist." And then there was the Telegram channel. According to archived content reviewed by Vice, Filion maintained a private channel where he documented his work. He posted recordings of his calls, captioned, "This is the one that I did." According to Vice, he posted a map of Washington State with the counties crossed off as he completed his swatting campaigns. A gamification scoreboard. According to Vice's investigation, the file numbering on his recordings went up to 170, though they only recovered 35 of them. But of those 35 recorded calls, only 2 used a human voice. The other 33 used digitized text-to-speech voices that, according to Vice, could change what they were saying in something close to real time. But even as Filion was escalating, investigators were closing in. And during one call, a school resource officer told Filion he was under investigation. According to Wired, this is what happened next.
So stop calling
I
my
am
school.
never going to be caught. I am invincible.
According to the audio obtained by Wired, that's Alan Filion telling a school resource officer who warned him he was under investigation, "I am never going to be caught. I am invincible." He was a teenager. On January 18th, 2024, FBI agents arrested Alan Winston Filion at his home in Lancaster, California. The temperature that morning, 34 chilly degrees, barely above freezing at dawn in a desert town where summer temperatures had hit 109. According to the DOJ press release, he was extradited to Florida on January 30th and held without bond. He was ultimately charged with 4 federal counts of making interstate threats to injure, a violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 875C. FBI Director Christopher Wray, speaking to the major county sheriffs of America, just 22 days after the arrest, referred to Filion as a particularly prolific juvenile. But the question of who Alan Filion actually was, well, that answer is more complicated than I think anyone expected. If you're still with me, and I hope you are, because what comes next will challenge everything you've assumed about this case. Make sure you're subscribed or you've followed so you don't miss what comes next. The case files and court documents behind the episode are available exclusively on Substack. Just search True Crime Unheard or visit truecrimeunheard.com. Now, we've established what Torswats did. 375 calls across 11 states, mosques, schools, historically black colleges and universities, the Pentagon, members of Congress. A business model with a price list and discounts. But behind the screen name and the digitized voices, who was Alan Filion? And does the answer change anything? Alan Winston Filion was born October 30th, 2006 in Lancaster, California. According to the defense sentencing memo, his early life was marked by instability and isolation. His mother took him to China when he was 3, and they returned when he was 6. His parents separated when he was 12. His mother moved to Wisconsin, and Alan stayed in California with his father, eventually living with an aunt and uncle. The defense memo describes his mother's behavior as emotional, verbal, and physical abuse, including corporal punishment, often for non-disciplinary issues. She beat him. His father met his physical needs, but according to the memo, he can't remember a single time a friend would visit Alan at their home. He never had a close friend. He was bullied in school. He had difficulty reading facial expressions and understanding sarcasm. But he was extraordinarily intelligent. He entered the gifted student program in elementary school, and at 12 years old, he scored 1520 on the standardized college admissions testing, 99th percentile. He earned his high school diploma at 15 from Quartz Hill High School in Lancaster, and he enrolled at Antelope Valley College in August 22. The same month, the swatting campaign began. He had earned 100 credit hours with a 3.73 GPA, an Associate of Science in Mathematics. He's a smart kid. And here's a detail I bet you won't expect. I found it when I first read the court documents. While sitting in a jail cell in Seminole County, Florida, awaiting sentencing, Alan Filion was admitted to the University of California at Berkeley College of Letters and Science for fall 2024. I mean, think about that. He's sitting in a jail cell in Florida, and an acceptance letter from Berkeley arrives. His goal, according to the defense memo, was a doctorate in physics. He wanted to become a physics professor. After his arrest in January 24, 3 independent experts evaluated Alan Filion. 3 completely separate evaluations conducted by different professionals with no coordination or discussion between them. All 3 reached the same conclusion: autism spectrum disorder. According to the defense sentencing memo, during his first forensic interview in February 24, Filion viewed his actions as funny, and he called them pranks. He said there were no long-term consequences. 10 months later, something had shifted. According to forensic psychologist Dr. Jeffrey Danziger's report, Filion told him, and I'm quoting the court document, quote, "A lot of people were harmed by that. I didn't understand the nature of that. The things I said were incomplete. I didn't appreciate their full nature. When I was doing the swatting back then, I didn't understand the impact. I didn't recognize the emotional distress it caused, and I was blind to the suffering. I distanced myself from it," unquote. And then this. "Here in jail, I see people who are antisocial, who enjoy the violence they thrust on others. And I'm upset I was acting similarly. I didn't recognize it at the time. I just thought it was a funny prank. There wouldn't be a second time. Dr. Danziger's clinical opinion, as stated in the defense memo, quote, "It's my opinion the autism spectrum disorder significantly impaired his ability to understand the wrongfulness of his behavior, and he was unable to appreciate the harm and distress his actions were causing the victims." Unquote. The defense called it mind blindness, not callousness. I mean, he was a kid. That doesn't excuse it. The defense asked for probation, time served, the 13 months he'd already spent in custody, and they argued that the autism spectrum disorder, combined with his youth and his extraordinary academic potential, warranted mercy. The government saw it differently. And before I take you into that courtroom, I need you to meet the man who was swatted 42 times because his story is what mind blindness looks like from the other side of the door. Patrick Tomlinson is a science fiction novelist from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. According to his own account, given on camera to Inside Edition, and in a 16-minute interview with the YouTube channel Sunny Boo, he had been swatted between 42 and 47 times over 5 years.
There are half a dozen police officers with shotguns, pistols drawn, assault rifles, all pointed at my face.
The origin of his nightmare, according to Tomlinson, was a tweet. In 2018, he wrote that he'd never personally found the late comedian Norm Macdonald to be very funny. That was it. A tweet about a comedian. For the record, I found Norm Macdonald to be funny. An online community associated with a now-defunct podcast decided that his opinion was unacceptable. According to Tomlinson and reporting by Yahoo News, 4 to 6 core members coordinated a campaign that included account impersonations, doxing, death threats, coordinated negative Amazon reviews of his books, physical surveillance, and, of course, a little swatting.
This is what this group, this cyberstalking cult, does for fun, and we were not the first person they did it to.
According to NBC News and PC Gamer, Torswats advertised that swats targeting Patrick Tomlinson were free. The swattings stopped in July 23, the same month the FBI raided Filion's home. Tomlinson's elderly parents were also swatted 3 separate times. According to Inside Edition, Tomlinson and his wife are now in debt from legal fees, trying to fight the harassment. 42 swattings, 5 years, and the courts, in Tomlinson's words, quote, "The courts have been less than useless. The courts have actively harmed us at every step," unquote. I've spent 30 years or more investigating criminals, financial predators mostly, Ponzi schemers, embezzlers, people who destroy lives for profit. And one thing I've learned is the word prank is a red flag. When someone calls what they're doing a prank, what they're saying is, the harm isn't real because I don't feel it. It's the language of distance. A prank is harmless by definition. So if you call a crime a prank, you've already absolved yourself. And Alan Filion called 375 swatting calls pranks. He posted a price list. He offered discounts. He had a loyalty program. He maintained a scoreboard. He tested his methods on his own home with his father inside. He told a school resource officer he was invincible. And the question isn't whether he understood that calling in a mass shooting threat is wrong. The question is whether he understood that the people inside those buildings, the women and children at a mosque, the students at a high school, the agent's family asleep at 2:45 in the morning, were real. I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sure anyone does. Before I take you in the courtroom, you need to understand what has happened when swatting goes wrong, because the government made sure the judge understood it. December 28th, 2017, in Wichita, Kansas, a man named Tyler Barris, calling from a library in Los Angeles, placed a fake emergency call about a shooting and hostage situation at a home in Wichita. The call originated from a dispute over a $1.50 wager in a Call of Duty match between two other people. Casey Viner and Shane Gaskill. Gaskill had given Barris his old address. It was a real address. He just didn't live there anymore. The address belonged to Andrew Finch, and he was 28 years old. When Finch opened his front door, an officer shot and killed him. Tyler Barris was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. The city of Wichita paid a $5 million civil settlement to Finch's family. Then there's April 27th, 2020, Bethpage, Tennessee. A teenager named Shane Sonderman wanted a Twitter handle at Tennessee. The handle belonged to a 60-year-old man named Mark Herring. And when Herring wouldn't give it up, Sonderman posted his home address on Discord. A co-conspirator in the United Kingdom made the swatting call. When armed officers arrived at Mark Herring's home, he suffered a real, fatal heart attack. And his daughter, Corina, later said, "I believe he was scared to death." Sonderman received 5 years. These aren't innocent crimes. And according to the government's sentencing memo in Filion's case, prosecutors explicitly argued that Filion's calls were, quote, intentionally designed to provoke exactly this type of violent, dangerous response, unquote. And the government cited Andrew Finch's death directly. Nobody died because of Alan Filion's calls. But the government argued that nobody dying was luck, not restraint. February 11th, 2025, in Orlando, Florida. 81 degrees with a light drizzle outside. One of those thin rains that just doesn't cool anything down. At 9:31 in the morning, the sentencing hearing began in United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida. Assistant United States Attorney Daniel Marcet was prosecuting. Defense attorneys Dan Eckhart and David Bigney represented Filion. According to the sentencing hearing minutes, the hearing lasted 53 minutes and it was contested. The defense called one witness, Dr. Jeffrey Danzinger, who testified under oath about the autism spectrum diagnosis, the impaired empathy, the trajectory from pranks to genuine remorse. The sentencing guidelines calculated a range of 41 to 51 months. The government asked for 37 months below the guideline, but even the prosecution acknowledged Filion's youth and diagnosis. The defense asked for probation, no additional prison time beyond the 13 months he had already sat in prison. So what did the judge give him? 48 months, 4 years in federal prison, above the government's request, 3 years of supervised release, a $400 special assessment, fine waived, restitution, deferred and later amended to zero. Not because there was no harm, but because no victim requested it. Alan Filion told his family not to come to the sentencing. And according to the defense memo, he wanted to spare them the financial burden of the trip. He was 18 years old. The Bureau of Prisons recommended a facility in California, close enough for his father to visit. So let me show you the sentencing math because it raises questions that I think are worth sitting with. Tyler Barris, approximately 50 swatting calls, 1 person killed, 20 years. Shane Sonderman, approximately 10 calls, 1 person killed, 5 years. Stephen Thorne, a less publicized case, 5 threatening calls, no deaths, 5 years. Another case was a Romanian citizen sentenced around the same time, 75 calls targeting members of Congress and the president-elect. No deaths. He got 4 years. The same sentence as Filion for a fifth of the calls. According to media estimates, each swatting call costs law enforcement around $10,000. By that measure, Filion's 375 calls represent an estimated $3.75 million in wasted law enforcement resources. Schools evacuated, children terrified, families traumatized, and a woman shielding her children in a mosque while officers swarmed the building. So what does proportional justice look like for a crime where nobody died, but hundreds lived in fear? Alan Filion is appealing his sentence. According to a filing discovered on Justia, the case is now before the United States Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit. Case number 25-12589. And the appeal was filed after the February 11th, 2025 sentencing. Whether Filion is contesting the sentence as excessive, challenging the conviction itself, or raising a procedural issue, that's not yet clear from the public record, but the case is active, and what's clear is this story isn't over. Former United States Secret Service Deputy Director A.T. Smith. The Secret Service was also involved in the Filion investigation. According to a police department statement, quote, "The ammunition is real, the guns are real, and the officers are responding at the highest level." No one has to die for swatting to be lethal. The lethality is built into the response. Every call places a loaded gun in the hands of officers who believe they're walking into a mass casualty event. Every call asks a police officer to make a split-second decision about whether the person opening the front door is a victim or a threat. And Andrew Finch, he had opened his door. The kid was caught, the sentencing is over, and the appeal is filed. But the arithmetic doesn't end in a courtroom. In Milwaukee, Patrick Tomlinson, the man who was swatted 42 times over a tweet about a comedian, he's still in debt. The swattings stopped, but the harassment hasn't. According to media reports, more than 400,000 forum posts obsessing over him and his wife. That's terrible. A community of strangers who decided that a tweet about a comedian was worth 5 years of coordinated harassment. In Sanford, Florida, the congregation of that mosque returned to worship after 30 officers left their building. No one was charged with a hate crime specifically for targeting their mosque. The hate crime enhancement was applied to a different count: the school threat with that anti-LGBTQ slur. In Washington state, a student who was falsely named in a mass shooting threat. Remember victim 2 in the court documents? He had to live with being suspected for the most terrifying crime a school can face. Yeah, we don't know their name, and we don't know how they're doing. The court documents protect their identity, but they are real, and what happened to them was real. In Lancaster, California, Alan Filion's father lives in the same home where the FBI arrived. The same home where his son called in armed responses to himself 9 times as quality assurance testing with his father inside. I want to close with something. I've taken emergency calls as a police dispatcher. I've coordinated search and rescue missions as a pilot. I know what it feels like when a call comes in and you have to decide in seconds how to respond. Every one of those 375 calls triggered that exact sequence. Real dispatchers, real police officers, real adrenaline, real chances to make a mistake, real danger. At every target, someone had to decide, is this real? And they had to assume the answer was yes, because the cost of being wrong is a body count. Did Alan Filion understand that? Well, he understood it well enough to test it on himself 9 times with his father in the house. And that fact, that single fact, is the one I can't reconcile with the word mind blindness. Here's what I keep coming back to. Alan Filion scored in the 99th percentile on standardized tests. He was a bright kid. He was a smart kid. He had lots of opportunities. He earned an associate's degree in mathematics. He was admitted to UC Berkeley from a jail cell. 3 independent psychiatrists diagnosed him with autism spectrum disorder, a condition that, according to Dr. Danziger, significantly impaired his ability to understand the harm he was causing. And he swatted his own home 9 times. He called in armed police responses to the house where he and his father lived, not because he didn't understand what would happen, because he did, but he needed to know his methods worked. He needed to see the response, the number of officers, and the intensity of the reaction. He was testing whether his methods worked. He knew what those officers would do when they arrived. He heard it happen hundreds of times. He picked up his phone and sent them to his own front door with his own father inside. Not because he didn't understand the danger, but maybe because he did. Hey, if you want the case files and court documents behind this episode, I share those exclusively with subscribers. Head to truecrimeunheard.com/subscribe. That's truecrimeunheard.com/subscribe. You can also find me on YouTube, Substack. Just search True Crime Unheard. And one thing that really makes a difference if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, take 10 seconds right now and leave a rating. I try to do an honest, accurate job. I don't vilify people, I tell the story. So 5 stars, a quick review if you're feeling generous. It's the single biggest thing you can do to help other people find these cases. These stories deserve to be heard, and your rating is what puts them in front of new listeners. I'm Steve Rhode, and this has been True Crime Cases You Haven't Heard. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, stay subscribed.
Yeah.
See ya.
Cases you ain't heard about. Time to dig in. Yeah. Folders full of federal files, court documents stacked for miles. Ain't no famous names in here, just the truth that disappeared. Sworn affidavits, FBI, every claim verified. No speculation, no disguise, just the facts before your eyes. True crime cases, you have heard every single verified word. We honor the people, tell the whole story. No exploitation, just the glory of the truth coming to light. Cases overlooked, we make it right. Victims ain't just plot devices, not just names, not just crisis. Families deserve the dignity, stories told with integrity. 30 years I've walked this road, investigations heavy load. From the dispatch desk to the mic, getting every detail right. True crime cases